Okay, students, welcome back to another Star Tutors live stream. Today we're going to be covering the October 2021 SAT math section with math no calculator section. When you guys get into if you're watching the live stream, as you guys get into the live stream, can you give me a thumbs up just to let us know, let me know you're here. If you have any questions, whoops, forgot to turn off the volume on my, as you guys get into class, right, or into the lesson, can you just give me a thumbs up if you're watching the live stream? If you're watching the recording, which will always be available immediately after these live lessons, you can give us a thumbs up later, or you can comment. Always comment below if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer those. But again, hopefully everybody's here and ready to go. Guys, again, we're going to be going over the October 2021 SAT test today. One of the things that I want you guys to be thinking about as we go through this is this idea, this premise of being a great test taker. Okay, and what that means, okay, and again, if you guys are joining us, welcome everyone that's joining the live stream. What that means, guys, in terms of being a great test taker does not necessarily mean getting an 800 on the math test. Now, that's counterintuitive. You guys are probably sitting there being like, what in the world is he talking about? Guys, when you think about being a great test taker, that has nothing to do with the content of the test. For example, you could maximize your efficiency as a test taker even if you don't know anything about the content, right? Getting 30% instead of 25% out of 100, that's, obviously we're trying to shoot for better than that. But if your maximum score on any given day, your maximum efficiency was a 30, right, then that's what it is. That still means you are the maximum test taker. Okay, so again, it's counterintuitive, but the idea of getting a 600 for somebody that was going to, on that given day, right, maybe you still have to memorize a lot of math content or whatever it might be, the idea of getting a 600 could still mean you're a better test taker than somebody that got a 750. Because if somebody got a 750 on the math section, but they had two simple mistakes, and they should have gotten a 770, right? Two questions roughly on the math test is worth 20 points. They should have gotten a 770, but they got a 750 instead, but the other person didn't make any simple mistakes, and they got a 600. That person, the 600, is actually a better test taker. Maybe doesn't know as much math content, but is a better test taker than the person that made simple mistakes and didn't maximize their score. If you don't believe me, this is, for anybody that's taken calculus before, this is the greatest premise. This is how calculus changed the world and now is applied to almost everything, especially technologically, right? Everybody that sits there, you have a maximum number of questions going into the test that you know, and anybody that's seen a function, right, it looks like this typically, right, when we have an upside down parabola. And all of our goals, regardless of what this score is, should be to hit the top of the curve, right? This is truly, for those that have done tangent lines, right? This is truly the right. And then if you get into integrals, it's finding the area under the curve. That all applies to what we're talking about, right? There's a time factor here, which we all have to deal with. And then there's a correct answers factor over here. How many correct answers do I need to get right? Or how many correct answers can I get right to maximize my time? Right? That's the premise. And this is the core function of calculus, of economics. That's the beauty of this test, is that we can all be great test takers even if we haven't memorized all of the content. And again, that is so important when thinking about the SAT or the ACT math sections. We're trying to maximize our score by finding the questions that we know how to do. If you're looking to get an 800, you should really set somebody that's looking to get an 800, unless they've done 4 practice tests in a row on the math section to get an 800, and there are certain students that do that, but very, very few. So if your goal in the math section is to get an 800, set your sights on 770. Get there first, and then you can deal with the 3 hardest questions. But instead of getting wrapped up in this idea of trying to find the perfect square, right? A square is an optimization. And I only bring these things up, but you wouldn't sit there for 5 hours drawing a perfect square. If it was close enough, what I just drew looks relatively like a square, that would be good enough for all of us. And we wouldn't think about it. Yet when we get to this test, we're always worried about the one tiny little point at the very, very tip of the square, rather than worrying about filling out all of this, right? All of this part of the square, which is the maximum efficiency. So many of us go into this test feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, and we only worry about this final point down here, right? Don't do that. Worry about completing the square first, right? No pun intended for all those math students out there, right? No pun intended. Complete your square first. Optimize your square before getting worried about the final point. Okay, so does that everybody that's watching the live stream, can you guys give me a thumbs up? Does that make sense? When you guys get into the recorded video, if you're watching the recording, please make sure that you think about that. Because again, we see so many students who are so worried about the score that they're not optimizing. And again, somebody who scores a 600, we're going in, and you don't know this going into every test, but let's say on any given test you knew how to do 600 points worth of math problems on that SAT. If you get a 600 and that was your maximum, you are a better test taker than the student that got 750, right? Who might know more math content. That person knows more math content than you do, but you're still, from a pure test taking standpoint, a better test taker than anybody who makes a simple mistake. And that's what we're trying to get at. That's perfect efficiency, and it's not just me making this up. This is Isaac Newton, right, in the 1600s, figuring out how far planets were from each other. That's calculus in everything you do in life. And that's how we should approach this test. How do we become the perfect, efficient test takers, regardless of what the ultimate score is going to be? How do we find the most number of questions that we know how to answer? Okay, so for anybody that's watching the live stream, hopefully that all makes sense. Can you guys give me a final good to go or a thumbs up for everybody that's ready? We're going to set the timer here for 25 minutes. This is, again, the October, let me write this real quick, October 2021 SAT math no calc section, right? You guys can see that down here. No calc. One final thing before we go, guys, please remember to download Star U. It's our free tutoring app on the App Store. There are 500 free practice problems and over 100 free lesson chapters related to the SAT. All you have to do is search Star U in the App Store or on Google Play. I posted the instructions before we got started today in the live stream, and for anybody that's watching the recording, our teaching assistant posted them in the description below this video. So please make sure that you guys download Star U. You get, again, so many free practice problems. You click SAT, then SAT Math, and all of these practice problems you see on the screen, including lesson chapters talking about real practice tests, right? These are all based on real practice tests. Can be found right there on the app. So please make sure that you download. It's also available on the platform. And we'll get started here in just a second. Oh, real quick question, guys. Yeah, here, Pranay, if you guys are interested, now this is a paid because idioms are really hard. So if you guys go into SAT Writing and Language, also on Star U, if you're interested in learning about idioms, we actually have this chapter, but this is a $5. You have to pay for that one. But we do have idioms somewhere. But again, that vocabulary and idioms, no, it's free. So Pranay, if you download Star U, this is actually a free lesson chapter. If you download Star U, there's idioms right there, and those are the most common ones. You can find that in Star U. Again, not trying to talk about writing and language too much here today, but you can find it there, and that's actually that's a free lesson chapter. So check that out. All right, guys. So without further ado, though, we're gonna get started. Put the timer up here. Again, this is the SAT Math No Calculator section. 25 minutes on the clock. And pull my timer here real quick. Get started. Okay, 25 minutes, and our timer starts now. Wow, this is a weird lettering. I don't know where they came up with this. Right. So, guys, right away, this should be a question that you never rush through. Right? I mean, I know it seems so easy, but I can't tell you how often we see students make simple mistakes. 5K. I almost made a simple mistake myself. You can add 3 and 2 together, right? You don't have to do that part on the page, but 5K is equal to 5. Divide by 5, right? So K is equal to 1. Okay, does that all make sense, guys? Can I get it right? That's a very, very straightforward, easy question. This first one, or number 2 rather, this is one of those examples where number 2 is also very straightforward. If you've seen our 3-pass method in previous videos, the idea is to get all of your first pass questions done first, the ones that don't confuse you, that don't worry you. Right? We're getting our first pass questions done first. So if you know exponential graphs, right, y is equal to 3x, and even if you don't forget, guys, that you can always plug in, right, x and y points. So if you don't know exactly what that graph looks like, and obviously we can't use our calculator on this one, y is equal to 3x, just plug in when when x is equal to 2, y is equal to what, right? Or when x is equal to 1, y is equal to what? Well, when x is equal to 1, y is equal to 3. Okay, so now let's go find that one. When x is equal to 1, looks like y is equal to 3 right there, just to make sure we didn't make a simple mistake, because there's no reason to miss this question. Looks like the only one that has 0.1 comma 3 is A. And so again, that's a very easy way to go about that, by plugging in points if you don't know exactly what a certain graph looks like. Okay? Yeah, and Pranay, so you guys will wonder if you're looking at that one. The reason I didn't pick a y-intercept is because people forget that 3 to the 0 power is 1, which is the y-intercept. But that's one where we can just plug in 1, right, and find the point on the graph if we're given the graph. Okay, so f of x is equal to 3x squared plus 4x minus c. In the given quadratic function, c is a constant. What is the value of c? Okay, well, look, guys, again, if you know functions, right, I skipped number 3. Okay, I skipped number 3, and because it looks longer, right, corresponding values, that's a big word. I can always come back to it. I can stay way ahead of pace here by simply plugging this in and not making a simple mistake. So f of 2 is equal to 12. That means when x is equal to 2, y is equal to 12, and now we're just solving for c, right? So we get 12 is equal to 3. Let's not make a simple mistake. Let's write things out. Plus 4 times 2 plus c. 12 is equal to 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12, right? Right? Yep, plus 8 minus c. Look, I almost made a simple mistake there. I wanted to make sure it's not plus c, it's minus c, right? Minus c. So we get 12 is equal to 20, right? Minus c, which means that c has to equal 8, right? So c is equal to 8. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so as we look through this again, even if you know how to do this in your head, don't make simple mistakes. Okay, don't make simple mistakes, guys. On this one, I'm not sure if you have a question, guys, about a certain number, just make sure that you quote the number, the question number, so that I can answer that if you're part of the live stream. Okay. So just make sure you quote again, we don't want to make simple mistakes on easy questions. For right now, I'm going to skip number 5 just because it doesn't look like one that's going to be super straightforward. Which of the following is equivalent to the given expression? Well, if we know what the word equivalent means, and we remember, okay, that 6 over x, right, 6 over x divided by 18. Now, everybody misses this, that you can also write this as 6 over x divided by 18 over 1. We flip the second number and we multiply, so we get 6 times 1 over x times 18. Okay, does that make sense? And then we get 6 over 18x, which is just 1 over 3x. All right, did I make a mistake there? But it doesn't seem right. 1. That's right, yeah, 6 0, sorry. Yeah, guys, I'll go back to number 2 at the end for sure. I'm going to keep moving here, but I'll absolutely go back to number 2. Okay, so this one is relatively straightforward here for number 7. It says, in the figure shown, C is the center of the circle. Great. If AB is tangent, so remember that if you see this word tangent, if you have a line tangent to the circle, it always forms a 90-degree angle. That's a rule of math. Tangent lines to the radius of a circle always form 90 degrees. Which of the following is true about the measure of BAC? It has to be 90 degrees. Okay, so that again, that's just a principle. Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Measure is equal to 90 degrees. Okay, that's a rule, and because I knew that, I saw the word tangent, and so I knew that 90 degrees was going to play into it. And from there, it's just about concept review. Okay, so let's keep going. This one looks straightforward as well. Number 8, although it's harder to see here. Therefore, what is the value of x for f of x equals 0? Guys, look at this, right? What is the value of x for f of x equals 0? Well, when we say f of x equals 0, if we know our functions, right, for number 8, f of x equals 0 is just saying when y equals 0, right, x equals what? Well, that's one where we say, right, because f of x and y are the same, that's one where we're just looking for the x-intercept. So if we look at number 8 here, we come back up here and we say x is equal to 3, right? So the answer would be D. you guys can see that if you're not rushing through this test, you're just thinking about the questions and finding the most important things. I barely read, on number 8 here, I barely read what the question was asking, but it said f of x is equal to 0, which I knew right away because that's where the content review comes in. Okay, I knew that if f of x equals 0, then y equals 0, so they were just looking for the x-intercept. When y equals 0, that's going back to pre-algebra, but that's not always the first thing on our mind when we start doing harder questions or questions that we don't necessarily immediately know how to do. Okay, so guys, so Karat, you just said something perfectly. Okay, so anybody that's watching the live stream, if graph questions add to your anxiety, that's exactly why it's perfect that you know that. Because there are questions that add to my anxiety as well. That everybody has that. That goes back to being a great test taker. That if going in, that's the beauty of this, that if you practice and going in, like, okay, these graph questions are really going to add to my anxiety, then it would be most advantageous for you not to look at the graph questions first, right? You can always come back to those, but let's knock out 10 easy questions, right? And that goes for anybody that struggles with these graph questions. Let's get the 10 easy ones out of the way, out of the 20, and then we can go worry about the graph questions. Rather than seeing it at number 8, right, starting to get flustered and potentially missing easy questions later on because we're already flustered from the graph question. Like number 9, this one has a lot of variables in it. It's a somewhat of a word problem, an equation looking something like some type of growth equation, but that's not one that I immediately want to do. That's not a function question. Let's move on from that, okay? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Guys, what is the volume in cubic units? I loved geometry when I was a kid. I love it now. So I know really well what triangular prisms are going to do. And I see here that I have a right angle. And if you remember with right angles, the two sides of a right angle, the non-hypotenuse sides, the two legs, are always the base and the height. So if we flip this, right, we flip it like this. This is the base and this is the height of that side. And triangular prisms, all prisms, you just find the area of the face, right, and then you multiply it. Is that right? Yeah, then you multiply it by the height, right? The height or the length. So here I'm going to say 6 times 6 divided by 2, right? That's the area of a triangle, which is equal to 18. And then I'm going to multiply that by 10. So again, this one is just 1/2 base times height times length. And I almost made a mistake there looking for surface area, but I came back, I saw this word volume, so I should probably circle that. And the answer would be C there for number 10. If you love geometry, right, that one shouldn't be too hard of a problem. And if you don't love geometry, right, you're a much better algebra student or you feel better about certain questions, then don't do that one. Don't do number 10 before you've seen other easy questions. For right now, I'm going to skip 11 and I'm going to skip 12. 12 might not be that hard, but for right now, just because, remember, when we get to those free response questions, those turn around, and numbers 16 and 17 are typically easier, much easier than 11, 12, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So unless I see one that I really know how to do well, like maybe number 13 here, this one's going to be pretty straightforward, and as is number 15 if you know the rule for that one. And maybe number 16, yeah, no solution. So 13, 14, and 15, right, are actually all going to be pretty straightforward. On this one, it says line shown, but again, going back to the live streamers that said, like, I don't really feel great about graphs, then don't do number 13. It makes no sense with 15 minutes left, and you start with number 13 and get flustered when 16 and 17 in the free response are probably going to be pretty straightforward. So here, though, it says, which of the following is the equation? Well, again, they give us the intercepts here, guys. So if I just plug in 0, 2, right, and I plug that in, I'll say x is 0, and when y is 2. So if I just plug these in, y equals 2, 0. And likewise, I can also say down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? If we say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we also have a point here that looks like it's at 5, 0. When x is 5, y is 0. So I'm just going to look for those values. So if I plug in x is 0, do I get 10? No, very clearly it's not A. Right? Does everybody see that? It's very clearly not A. Let's see. 0 plus 2 plus 4, it's not B. Right? Again, I'm just plugging in these points. I'm kind of doing this in my head just so that we can keep up a certain pace. Okay, let's see. 4 minus, if I do 4 minus no, sorry, if I do 0, no, that's going to be negative 10, so it's not C. Okay. So if I do 0, now, yeah, right, so it's here I get 0 plus 2. Yeah, so it's got to be D. I just plug those in, right? And you guys are seeing how often the SAT gives you the SAT no calc section. You're seeing how often they give you these problems where you're just basically plugging in points on the no calculator section. And if you understand that all graphs, right, graphs are based on points on a line, right? We have a point here. If I plugged in any of those points, it would satisfy the given equation. Okay, and so that's the key here, is that you always want to take your time making sure you don't make a simple mistake, because once you know that any graph is just plugging in points of the line, almost always, we've had 3 so far in the first 13 questions, we had 3 just exactly like, they're almost the same. Number 2 was exactly like number 13. And once you know that, it's all about basic algebra, and there shouldn't be any reason to make a simple mistake. Guys, number 14, it says no solution. I saw that. I was just looking through these problems. I saw no solution, right? When we came to 13, 14, and 15 just 2 minutes ago, I saw no solution. That's a very straightforward problem. If you see the term no solution, right, it means parallel lines. Okay, these are parallel lines if we see no solution, meaning that you're going to have the same slopes equal, right, but different y-intercepts, so these constants are going to be different. And what we'll notice here is that we have 3y and 6y, and so 3 and 6, right, are going to line up. When we divide at the end, if we were to divide at the end, they would line up. So 3y times what is equal to negative 6y. So we have plus 3y, right, and minus 6y. It looks like on the y variables, which was what they've given us, that's times negative 2. And in order for the x's to be the same then, now we're going to have 12x, so now we just have to divide by negative 2. 12x divided by negative 2 would be equal to negative 6x. So this was going to be negative 6 for answer choice N. Okay? Does that make sense, guys, on 14? That if I have parallel lines, all of these, if you divide it out by any given number, they always have to equal each other. So if I divide out by negative 2, you're going to get the same thing, and then whatever happens over here when you get the term no solution, that doesn't matter. The constants in a no solution problem don't matter. You just have to worry about the x's and the y's lining up and being perfectly in line. And again, that's what we got from that question. Which of the following is equivalent to 16? Just be really careful in these, guys. 16a, 16, well, first and foremost, right, if we square root 16, we can immediately, and let's do that first, we can immediately eliminate c and d. Right, the square root of 16, you can also write this as 16 times the square root of a to the 16th power. Okay, so right away we can eliminate 2 answer choices. If you're struggling, let's get the easiest stuff out of the way first. We get 4 times, well, a to the 16th power is like saying a to the 16th raised to the 1/2 power, right? That's the square root. When we have exponents raised to exponents, we multiply those. So this would be 4a to the 8th power. Choice B for number 15. Okay, don't make a simple mistake, right? And we'll come back, guys. We'll come back to 2 or 3 questions at the end if you have any questions. But so far, I haven't been stressed or overwhelmed by any of the questions. And we've probably answered maybe like, I don't know, of the 15, we've probably skipped 4. And we're kind of right on time, right? We have 5 left in the free response, 4 that we have skipped. About 10 minutes left, so we're pretty much right on time. I don't feel stressed at all. And if I do come back to a question that I get wrong, right, this is the key to efficiency, being the best test taker possible. If we do come back to one of these questions and I don't know how to do it, at least I've answered all the questions that I do know how to do first before getting flustered by the 1 out of 20 or 2 out of 20 that I don't know how to do. And that's the key with efficiency and skipping these questions that don't immediately look comfortable. We move on from those and we can always come back. Okay, we're still right on pace for time. Right here it says the graph y equals 3/5 x minus 8, and the line is what is the slope, right? Well, guys, that's exactly my point. 3/5, right? I mean, they couldn't line that up any easier for you. That is the easiest question by a million miles on this test. Every single one of us has studied y equals mx plus b. That's the easiest question that took, like, I don't know, 3 seconds. It's almost impossible to believe that it's that straightforward, and all we had to know is y equals mx plus b. You know, again, going back to this, why get flustered on an earlier question when we have number 16 and we might not even get to it or have a chance to get to it just because we feel too overwhelmed? Okay, what is the solution to the system of equations? Okay, well, what is the value of x? Okay, 3x plus 2y is equal to 8. Then we get 4x minus 3y. This is a pretty straightforward problem, but there's a high likelihood on systems of equations problems to make a simple mistake. We're going to try to avoid that. I'm going to multiply everything here by 3 to get these to line up. Multiply everything here by 2. So now I have 9x plus 6y is equal to 24. See it all the way through, right? I have 8x. Now minus 6y, right? Minus 6y is equal to 10. Because this is plus and this is minus, I'm going to add these down. So I add those because 6y minus 6y, so right, plus 6y plus negative 6y is going to be 0y. Here I get 17x plus 0y, which is what we want because that's just going to cancel, is equal to 34. 17x is equal to 34, so x then is just equal to 2. Everybody good with that one? Again, see all the way through, guys. In the right triangle, sine x is equal to cosine 20. This is, again, so straightforward. Sine x is equal to cosine 20. The sine of x is always equal to cosine minus 90 degrees. Cosine 90 minus x. So sine x, right, is equal to just the opposite angle up to 90. So x is just equal to 70 degrees. If you know that one, right, that's a rule, by the way. Okay, so sine x is equal to cosine. That's called a trig identity. Is equal to cosine 90 minus x. 90 minus 70 is 20. So cosine of 20 is equal to sine of 70, right? And that's the right triangle idea that you see with sine and cosine. Okay, there should be, but again, that's a rules-based question that if you know how to do it, we've flown through 16, 17, and 18. I don't think we made a simple mistake. I think everything was pretty straightforward. But can everybody give me a thumbs up if you see the importance of getting to these questions before worrying yourself about something like number 2 or number 5 or whatever it was? What is the sum of the solutions? So just be careful with absolute value. X minus 2, right, is equal to 3. Or negative x minus 2 is equal to 3. Okay, that's how you solve an absolute value equation, which is what these bars represent. X minus 2 is equal to 3, plus 2 on both sides, as x is equal to 5. Now, most start there, but guys, they're asking for the sum. Most stop at that point. That's not what they're looking for. Now we have to solve on this side, and we don't want to make a simple mistake. Negative x plus 2 is equal to 3. Negative x minus 2 on both sides. Negative x then would be equal to positive 1, so x is equal to negative 1. If we add these two together, the sum is just equal to 4. Okay? Very straightforward if you know absolute value problems. In the equation above, b is a positive constant. The sum of the solutions of the equation is 5. Okay, the sum of the solutions, right? So we get x squared is equal to 0. Sum of the solutions of the equation, right? Anytime we have it factored out like this, we just set each of these terms are all just set equal to 0. So we have x squared is equal to 0, x plus 3 is equal to 0, and x minus b, right, is equal to 0. We get x is then equal to 0, of course. X is equal to negative 3, and x is equal to positive b, right? If I add all of those over, and so the equation, the sum of the solutions, so 0 plus negative 3 is negative 3, so negative 3, right, plus b needs to equal 5. So in this case, then b just equals 8, right? Negative 3 plus 8. If we add negative 3 on both sides, b is equal to 8. And now, again, I think we got those free response questions were actually really, really easy for most free response questions on the Math No Calc section. I thought those were extremely straightforward, very easy. They were rules-based, so if you didn't know the content, then yeah, maybe you want to go back and make sure that you can answer those or learn that content. But once you know that content, those were all very, very straightforward questions. Okay? So let's now come back, and we're going to look at easier questions. Like we skipped, right? We skipped 3 and 4 here, or 3 and 5. I didn't think those were going to be that hard. I just didn't want to do those because they didn't immediately look like, oh, this is going to be so straightforward like something like this did, or various other questions like number 16, which again was probably the easiest Math No Calc section question I've ever seen on this test. Yet so many students we have don't get to that question just because they're so worried about the first 15. Or you're rushing through that and you make a simple mistake. That's what we want to try to avoid anytime we take this exam. We don't want that feeling. Yeah, I'll come back to number 20, guys, just real quick. Let me just do it now. We got 5 here, guys, from the question itself asked for 5 for number 20. I just saw that question. The sum of the solutions is 5. It says that in the question. That's why I set it equal to 5. Okay, let's come back here. Number 3, for the quadratic function, values of x and their corresponding values of f of x, which is the following, could be the graph. So, okay, guys, so they're just saying here, when x is -1, y is 0. When x is 0, y is -4. So let's just plug those in, right? When we have 0, -4, 0, -4, there's only one answer choice, right? It has to be A. So 0, -4, does everybody see how that's the only time when x is 0, -4? Every single, oh, no, you actually, it's C could work too. So let me go back. I still think it's A because it's going up, right? The curve comes back up. It is, yeah. So these ones, right, would be -1, 0. Yeah, so that should be right for 3, right? For number 3, I think should be A. 11.5, let's see, a person uses total. So this is why we don't want to do these, because it's easy to get flustered here. Running at a constant rate required 11.5 counts. Switch between the number of books. Or the ran for 20 minutes. How many minutes did the person walk? Okay, so 3.5, walking at a 3.5. They ran for 20 minutes, so we just get 11.5, right? Times 20, which is equal to 230. Plus 3.5y is equal to 365, or 265 rather, 265. So 3.5 is 3.5y is equal to 35 when I subtract over, and so I just get 10 for number 5. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left. I think we've done. We do all those questions. Okay, number 9. The equation gives A in terms of P, R, and T, where P and R not equal to 0, what's the equation? Oh, okay, so this one actually wasn't very hard. Guys, anytime you see these equations in terms of, T in terms of, all we're doing is we're moving the other variables to the other side of the equation. Whoops. Here, T plus 1. We just got to be careful here. Here, T plus 1, right? We're going to divide everything by P first. So we get A over P equals RT plus 1. Then we get A over P -1. So A over P, A over P. Minus 1 is equal to RT. Divide everything by R. So we get what? We divide everything by R, and the answer has to be D for number 9. No, it says C, right? Minus 1, yeah, because it just says 1. Yeah, C for number 9. Okay, I think that one has to be C. And then let's see which one. 11. I think these are the last two. We don't have a ton of time here, about a minute. Hotel room of 180 rooms on a certain day. Rooms were clean. There were 9 housekeepers on duty that day. Each housekeeper cleaned the same room. Same number of rooms. I don't know why we would have. Half the rooms were cleaned, right? So we divide by 2, so that would be 90. 9R is equal to 9. It's got to be A. So it wouldn't be 1/2. You have 180 rooms. You're trying to get to 90. Let's see if we can get this last. I think this is the last question. It's a linear equation. What is the value of K? Let's see. The line in the XY plane represents the relationship between the area. Number of paving stones used to make the top surface of each paving stone is a square with side length K feet. What is the value of K? So it's just a slope, I think, right? It's going to be 4. Oh, no, you go up. Oh, square root of 4, right? So it's the area, guys. So this one should actually be, I think, 2. Just real quick, guys, to finish up number 12 here. It's good. The slope is going up here, but this is related. There will be no gaps, and the line in the XY above represents the area, right? So we get, for every 2 units we move over, we get 8 units up, right? We go from 8 to 16. So we move up 2 to get to for every 8 do we go up, but it's talking about the area, so that would be 4, right? 4 units per the graph, but because it's area, we have to take the square root. So I think number 12 should be B. That's going back. That's actually a question made using square paving stones, right? I think it's got to be B for 12, but now I'm thinking this might be 4. No, with side length. Yeah, that's where I saw it. I was like, why am I thinking it's 2? Because they say the side length. 2 times 2 is 4, right? So we have to come back to that. Guys, for number 11, the reason it was that because they're saying as a total of 180 rooms, and on a certain day half the rooms were cleaned, Just if you guys were wondering. So everybody usually goes with B, or it's 9 per room, right? And each housekeeper cleaned the same number of rooms are. So you're multiplying that 9 times 2 rooms, right? Or whatever the number of rooms would be, 18 rooms, and there'd be a certain number of housekeepers on duty. But you can eliminate B and D because everybody, but if I multiply by 2, right, on both sides, the 180 is the constant rooms. If I'm multiplying by 2 on B and D, right, and I'm not adding, R plus 9 doesn't make, I don't know why, I thought that I actually said 1/2 for C, but I think it still has to be A because you're multiplying the number of rooms they're cleaning, right? You're not adding that. That wouldn't make sense when you're combining R, which is the number of rooms, plus 9. That would be another constant that they don't mention. But if you divide, right, on both sides of the equation for A and C, then you get the half of the rooms that were cleaned according to the questions. That's where I got the 9. That's where I knew it was A and C, even though that's kind of counterintuitive when you're looking at that for number 11. And again, I think 12 is B. So guys, did that all make sense? We'll pull up the answers here. Hopefully I didn't miss a question because I was going slower at the end. Did I? I didn't. Yeah, I knew I did 13. Yeah. So, but let me just tell you, this is very, very true that without a doubt, the last 3 questions, and if you go back and watch the video, right, when you go back and watch the video, you will see that the last 3 questions were the ones that gave me the most trouble. The last 3 that I just did. I thought they were right, but I was certainly, because my time was running low, and I probably talked too much, but hopefully you guys got the gist of what we're trying to do. I maximized going into this test, even if I missed one of those final 3 because I made a simple mistake, and that happens. I do that all the time. Everybody does that all the time. We're trying our best not to let that happen, to hit our maximum. But at the very least, from our discussion at the very beginning, even if we make one simple mistake, right, we don't want to compound that by making a million simple mistakes. Right? We don't want to do that because we're rushing or because whatever reason. We still want to be as close to the top of that curve as we can be, when we're maximizing the amount of time that we have for the number of correct answers that we have. And again, even if I made a simple mistake on the last 3 questions, I felt extremely good about the first 17. And so if I missed one of those last 3, it just kind of is what it is. You try not to let that happen, and you make corrections. You try to change that up. But that doesn't mean that you suddenly abandon that strategy just because you didn't get an 800. We see that from students all the time. Like, this is mathematically based. When we talk about that in these videos, it's all math. This is all truly based on optimization and calculus if you want to get really technical. But if you don't get an 800 the first time, we see so many students be like, well, I don't want to skip questions. It's like, well, it's just mathematically speaking not the right decision to not skip questions. Especially, we had a number of great, Karat, you being one of them, right, who said, I don't really like graphs. Well, that's a perfect example of somebody who has practiced, who knows that they don't love graphs, right? And so you move on from those questions, and that's fine. But can everybody give me a thumbs up in the chat or a thumbs up below the video if that concept makes sense about why it is so important to skip questions so that we do get this first 17 questions out of the way before ever looking at one where we're like, I think this is right, but I'm not 100% sure. Everyone up until those final 3, I was like, yeah, it's definitely, unless I made a really dumb mistake, which I absolutely hate when I do that, but it happens every now and then. I try my best to write things out, to not let that happen. But other than that kind of rare circumstance, I felt really good about the last 17, right? And that's what we're trying to do here, guys. Does that make sense? That is what we're trying to do, more than anything else. Okay, so can everybody give me a thumbs up if that all makes sense? And we'll keep moving from there. Let me pull up the answers here. If you guys are ever looking for the answers, you can always just pull those up on like Reddit. I just type in on Google like SAT October 2021 answers. Let's see here. Yeah, and usually it's pretty easy to find these. I put, let you guys take care of that. Okay, so all right, so let's see. Hopefully we didn't make any simple mistakes. I still feel pretty good about those last 3. They were certainly not not questions that I love doing, but I still felt pretty good. Number 1 is B, 2 is A, B, A, 3 is A, 4 is A, 5 is D, great. 6 is B, 7 is C, 8 is D, 9 C, 10C, 11 is A, 12 is B, 13 is D, 14 is B, 15 is B, 16, if I missed that one, there's no way. Yeah, 16 is 3/5. The easiest question I truly ever seen. I mean, like, it is not only a concept that everybody has seen before over and over again, but then they just ask about one of the variables, and it happens to be slope, which is the easiest, almost the easiest variable to remember. You don't have to do anything. They already gave you the y equals mx plus b equation. It's already set up that way. And that's why we want to move on from those. I think 17 and 18, those are 2 and 70. Yeah, those were rules-based. 17 would have been more likely than 18. 18 was a rules-based question. 19 was 4. And 20 was 8. So we got all those right, guys. Yeah, again, it's so critical as you guys go through this to skip questions. So we got 20 out of 20 there. Pranay, in terms of the verbal section, typically you can get like 10 wrong between the two. Maybe not that many. Yeah, probably. It kind of varies because the verbal section is separately graded. You have basically 400 for the reading and 400 for writing and language. So you could probably miss like 6, 7 on the reading section. That's a little bit more favorable curve. You're trying to get to a 700, and maybe 3 or 4 on the writing and language. But 10 is 10 overall between the two. While it's going to be a little bit more skewed to the reading section, is a pretty good estimate. So guys, again, there's 20 out of 20, right? I mean, it's not it absolutely helps you to make sure that you're skipping questions, to make sure that you're going through this in a manner that allows you to see your easiest questions first, because I was very, 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 very confident on the first 17. And then at the worst, right, if I happen to make 3 simple mistakes, I still have quite a bit of time, 3 minutes left for the final 3 questions or so. Even if I make simple mistakes there, 17 out of 20 is not, you're on pace for a 700 on the math test. And so that's where you want to be extremely, extremely diligent and very disciplined in finding in your practice the questions that you understand the best first, getting those and understanding those first, and then doing that on the real test. Yeah, guys, this test is from 2021. It's the October test. It's actually the most, as of today, the live stream being recorded. For anybody that's watching the recorded video, this is the most recently released exam. So let me just go through a few of these questions. I know we had a question about number 12. Yeah, guys, I went through 12 pretty quickly. The reason I answered that was because I saw the slope, right? The line in the XY represents the relationship between the area, right, and the patio, the number of paving stones. So again, when they say relationship, they just mean that's what the equation looks like. So for every, 2 square feet here, we're going up by a certain number. We're going by 8 paving stones. So, right, for every 1, then we're going up 4, meaning our slope is 4. Okay, so that gives us that the area of each paving stone, in order for that area to be 16, then the area of each paving stone must be 4, right? If you have 4 stones with 16 area, that means that there's 4 of those stones for the area to make sense. But then you got to be really careful here. I almost went with 4, but I circled K feet, and kind of out of the corner of my eye, I saw side length, meaning that they weren't looking for 4. They were the area of the total square is 4, right, of the paving stone. Okay, so this is 4, but that would mean that the side lengths were 2 and 2. That's how we got to B for number. That would be the one that I almost made a simple mistake, but it was the last question we did. Realistically, that was probably the only one that, because I was really rushing at the end, that was the one I felt really, relatively uncomfortable. For number 14, guys, this is a no solution problem. And when you have no solutions with systems of equations, everything here has to be divisible by the same value. So what you'll notice is if I plug this in and I say negative 6x, right, plus 3y, plus 3y is equal to 1. We got answer choice negative 6x here after we solve. If I plug that in and I also plug in 12x minus 6y is equal to 0, we have to be able to divide, right? These have to line up. Everything on this side of the equation has to line up if you divide by certain things. And what you'll notice is if I do 12x minus 6y is equal to 0, and again, nothing over here matters. When you see no solution, you don't need to worry about the constant terms ever, just what x and y. If I divide this now by negative 2, I all of a sudden get negative 6x plus 3y is still equal to 0, right? But I don't care about the 0 because that doesn't matter when you see the term no solutions. That's parallel. Okay, final one here, just because you asked some good questions and you're very participative. Number 2 is a good example of a lot of the ones we went over today. We're given an equation, and anytime you're given an equation on the Math No Calculator section, and then more importantly, when you're given an equation and you're given the graphs, right, and you're given the graphs, all you have to think about, right, all you have to think about is which points on this graph, in this case I was looking at 1, 3, which points make that equation true. So when I plugged in x equals 1, and we can see that in answer choice A, right, x was equal to 1 when y was equal to 3, that's a point on that graph. If I plug that in, I say 3, right, is equal to 3 to the 1 power, just plugging in x and y up here. Well, I get 3 is equal to 3. That was true. And you'll notice that, so that makes that true. So that has to be, 1, 3 has to be a point on the graph of that equation. And what you'll notice is that there's no other answer choices that have 1, 3, right, as a point, so we know right away the answer has to be A. So that's how we do Q number 2. All right, guys, so that's it. I hope that was really helpful. Again, download Star U. You can get 1,000,000 of these practice problems. If you want to practice, for example, if you want to practice graphs of equations, that is right there, graphs of functions. Okay, if you guys download Star U, and you just sign up and register. Let me go back here, right? You sign up and register. You click lesson problems on the home page. Okay, yeah, but I'll let you guys do it because I got so many so many things streaming. Oh, there we go. Never mind. Okay, you click lesson problems, then you click SAT Math, and then you go down to do we have graphs of functions here at the bottom. You open that up, boom, there's all the stuff that we just talked about, and that's even a little bit harder than some of the questions we talked about. All right, guys, so one more thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure that you do so. I hope that this was really helpful. One more thumbs up if you haven't given one already. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you want to go back and rewatch it, it's always going to be available immediately after the live stream is over. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Help us spread the word. If you're interested in joining our membership program, which then you get 20 hours of content taught by me, you can click the join button below. But again, please subscribe for free if nothing else. Help us spread the word. We want to make more of these videos, and we can if you guys, again, help us with that. But otherwise, I really appreciate the participation. If you guys have any questions beyond the live stream and you're watching the recording, please just post those below, and we will. One of our teachers or tutors will answer those. And yeah, guys, hopefully you have a great day. One final thing, please make sure that you remember that that we do have the math with a calculator section. We're going to have that available as soon as we're done with the live stream tomorrow. And otherwise, the reading and the writing and language sections, which we've already completed, you can find those in the playlist in the video description below. So check those out if you haven't already. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Good luck as you continue to study, and we'll see you guys for the next live stream, next video. Thanks so much.